Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing our mini-series from Ten Tors and DofE and looking at 5 tips to help you get through the event. Okay, so tip number 1 is sharing is caring. And we've mentioned this in previous videos, but it's about sharing your kit out. Not every single person has to carry every single thing. If there's something that can be used by multiple people within the group, then carrying less of that item is a real easy way to save a bit of weight and also a little bit of pain if it's making your backpack too heavy. A good example of this would be a stove. Not every single person in the group needs to carry their own stove. You could have 2 between the group, and that way not everyone's having to carry one, and the people that aren't can carry something else like the inner of the tents or the outer of the tents, or something else like the first aid kit or group shelter that has to be carried on the event. So by sharing out that kit, you're saving yourself a little bit of weight, a little bit of frustration, and having a much better time. Okay, so tip number 2 is another thing we've spoken about a lot on this channel, and it's the use of dry bags. Dry bags are really useful bits of kit for a number of reasons. Not only will they keep your kit nice and dry, but they can also be used for organisation and also to keep wet kit in so the rest of your kit doesn't get wet inside your bag. So I've made the mistake of only using a rain cover in the past, and what can happen is if it's really strong rain and it's wind driven as well, it can get around the back of your backpack, it can find a way in, and then you've got wet kit, and there's nothing worse than going to bed at night with a wet roll mat or a wet sleeping bag. So you can either choose to individually dry bag certain items, so that's a little 4-litre dry bag there for you, and you can use the colour to colour code what is in that dry bag so you know what you're getting out of your bag without having to get it out of the dry bag and have a look at it. So you could have your sleeping bag dry bag with a yellow bag, green one for your roll mat, and so on. The other way to do it is to entirely line your rucksack, so you can get a much bigger dry bag that works off exactly the same premise, like so. You can put this inside your bag, and then you can pack everything that you're going to be taking into this. It depends on the size of your rucksack. It depends if there are certain items you might not want to dry bag, so things that are going up into the lid compartment of your bag, you might not need to. But if you line your dry bag, the only downside to that is it's a little bit harder to get to things because obviously everything's in this one section. I'm a real big fan of colour coding my kit, so I know exactly what I'm pulling out of my bag. I don't need to worry about opening the dry bag up, finding out it's not what I'm after, and to put it back in my rucksack. So use dry bags, mostly because it's a good way of double checking everything's going to be dry, so use your rain cover still, but also it's a really good organisational tool. It'll save you a bit of time when you're setting up camp in the dark. Okay, so tip number 3 is don't over carry. It can be really easy to get carried away when you're packing your rucksack for the event because you're a little bit worried that you might miss something or not carry something that you need. You'll get a really good kit list from your schools, which will help give you the guidance you need to pack the right things. But there are a few areas where you can really afford to save a bit of weight. Easy things to do are things like repackaging certain items. So for example, a first aid kit, if you're carrying a personal first aid kit and you've bought one from us, what you can do is remove the things you need. So just take out a few plasters. You don't need to carry that entire first aid kit. Pop it into a Ziploc sandwich bag, and that way you've only got the essentials. You're not carrying the bulk and also the weight of a full first aid kit. Another thing to consider is water. So you will have a requirement for how much water you have to carry, but what's worth thinking about is not over carrying water. I think Ten Tors recommend that you carry 2 litres, or the capacity to carry 2 litres. I've seen people carrying 3 or 4 litres, carrying a full bladder or camelback, and also carrying a full bottle as well. There'll be plenty of opportunities to refill your bottles from streams and stuff, especially if you're carrying purification tablets or filters. And water is one of the heavier things you're going to be carrying. So have a real think about how much you're going to be drinking on the event, especially while you're training now. Really consider that, and don't carry any more than you think you'll need. There will be opportunities to fill up en route and also to clean your water. So that's definitely a way of saving a bit of weight. And the next one is food, and really thinking about what you're eating, how much you're going to be eating, and also your calorie intake. So in terms of like your main meal, you've got wet and you've got dry meals. Both of those are absolutely fine. We've spoken about them in another video, which will pop up here for you, just so you can have a look at it. But a good way of saving weight is these dry meals. They're quite a bit lighter than the wet meals, but they can be a lot higher in calories. So this bag here is actually 1,000 calories. So it's a really calorie-dense meal. And it means you have to carry less food because that one meal is giving you a lot more calories. If you were to carry something like this, which is only giving you about, I think, 400, that's a lot less calories, and potentially you're going to have to carry a bit more food to keep yourself full and also give yourself the energy to continue walking. It's also a case of not overpacking when it comes to food. It's important to use these training walks and these training sessions to understand what you'll need to eat. You know, if you're coming back after a training walk with loads of food left, then maybe that's a really good way of write down what you've got left, and then next time you can leave that out and find that sweet spot between enough food to keep yourself going, but not so much that you're carrying a load of unnecessary weight that you're just going to cross the finish line with at the end. Tip number 4 is to consider using walking poles. I think walking poles have a bit of a stigma around them that they're not for young people, but they actually are. And if you use them from an early age, you're a lot less likely to develop issues with your knees and with your back. And they can be a great way of taking some of that weight off of your legs and putting it through your arms as well. It will help you be more efficient. It'll help when it comes to climbs, and it will just help shed a bit of that weight from your pack and distribute it more evenly across your body. We have some good options available here at Taunton Leisure. And it's just a really good option. It's not something you see a lot on Ten Tors. You don't see a lot of walking poles, but I think it's a really worthwhile thing to look at. And it's a really good way to make this whole thing a little bit more enjoyable. By distributing that weight more evenly, you're going to have a far better experience, and it's not going to feel quite as grueling. Okay, and our final tip, which is tip number 5, is think about how you're packing your rucksack. There's 2 reasons for this. The first is obviously making sure it's packed correctly, so it's comfortable and the weight is sitting close to your back, so that the bag fits nicely and it's not painful to carry. We've got a really good video about that we'll share just up here for you, where Stu will talk you through how to pack your bag, where certain items should go, to give you the best experience possible when wearing a rucksack. The second part to that is a case of organisation and knowing where things are. There's nothing worse than you're wet and you're cold, you get to your camp at night and you can't find things because you don't know where you've put them in your rucksack. So it's worthwhile having a bit of a plan on where certain things go. There are certain items that will sit in the same place all the time. Things like your sleeping bag and roll mat will tend to be at the bottom of your bag. But essential little items like your head torch, your water purification tablets, your first aid kit, make sure you know where you're putting them, put them in a convenient spot to get to, so that when you get to camp, it's as nice and straightforward as possible to get yourself pitched and get yourself to bed so you're nicely rested for the next day. So that was 5 really quick tips on how to make the most of your event. I really hope that's helped you out. If you've got any questions about Ten Tors, DofE, or any kit that you might require, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below or get in contact with one of our stores. And as always, if you could like, subscribe and comment, that would really help us out. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.